There is a loose running goat.
There is like a wicker basket.
There are lots of eggs.
We
We
are
are
on
at
a
a
farm.
farm.
Yeah, farm.
Yeah! Farm convergence.
Pretty good. And yeah, everything's still about farms.
There is a cement truck.
There is a pair of gloves.
There is a hard hat.
We
We're
are
at
at
a
a construction
construction
site.
site. Yeah.
Clean.
There's a Venus flytrap in a pot.
There is a very heavy, humid mist throughout the air.
There is a big heat lamp at the top of the room.
And we're
at
in a greenhouse.
Planetary. Oh.
Wait, what did
Okay.
you say, Julia?
I was trying to say like plantarium or like plants.
Oh, like
plants.
a terrarium or something?
I had the conception of where something like a greenhouse, but I
Yeah.
thought that the walls maybe were glass.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like
yeah.
plantarium.
Planetarium.
It sounds so close to planetarium. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Muprov Musings. This is episode 75. I'm one of your hosts, Al Munger, and joining me now on the line is your ultimate host, Julian Bernardo.
Ultimate sometimes means last, right? Or it must initially mean last in the sense of like penultimate.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does also just mean last in English too sometimes, like the
Yeah.
ultimate. And so if we're thinking about the word last, let's think about last time we had this epic person on the podcast. We're doing another repeat guest today. We have the wonderful Kaelyn.
Hello,
Welcome,
hello. Oh my gosh, what a lovely introduction. Hello. Excited to be back. I can't believe this is, did you say 75?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow, awesome. Well, yes. I'm very excited to be back and chatting with y'all again.
So Kaelyn was a physical improviser in a new play, and so we're very excited to talk to her to get to the bottom of what that was like, and also just inquire into Kaelyn's improv life in this interim. I think something that Hal came up with is it would be interesting to hear from you, since this is like a weird new sort of way that someone can improvise, how you would describe a physical improviser.
Yeah, I think for a new play, physical improvisers were basically I think I thought about like it was like we were experimenting more with like physical movement in improv because I think for us like from our previous background since we just hadn't done a ton of that before or like I don't or like encountered existing frameworks for this. So I think there's like physical improvisers who were kind of like just dealing with like movement of our bodies for dance, movement of like props and like set items to make the set, movement of like the characters as well. Like bring people on stage, dancing with the character improvisers, things like that. What else? There's special effects. I think like a big inspiration I think of a lot is like animation. I think of like how animation does a really good job of like showing like the special effects or like and like anime like there's like you can see there's like those marks when a character is like annoyed. There's like the shine of the glasses when we push them. There's like I love like these like animation tropes of things like that.
I love that connection because it does feel very much like that's exactly what we're doing on stage. Whenever like so much of our just like space object tech is like, you know, if we were popping into multiple arms or whatever, it's this exaggerated thing that is not true to life, but it's like evoking the feeling we want. So that's that's awesome that you took that as an inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think a good way to describe it, which I recently like was performing a play directed by Anna Jung, another one of our fellow beloved simps. But it was doing dance theater, so it was kind of like we would like choreograph like dance and physical movement and gestures to text and things like that. And the way Anna put it was like, oh, we want to show that this is not just a descriptive world, but an expressive one. And I think of that when we're talking about like these effects, like it's kind of like, yeah, like expressing kind of like what characters are feeling, like the magnitude of like a giant punch or like big winds roaring. Yeah, I guess things like that.
That's exactly actually what we were kind of planning to talk about today. We're going to dive into some of those specific things that you said. But before we do that, I was wondering, you've already mentioned dance, like what's your background as a mover? And what kind of, what movement footprint were you bringing into the show, and how does that change how you improvise?
Yeah, I think I like many other girls I know did ballet for like a brief stint when they were little, but like I don't like maybe that I don't know. I'm too young to remember, but I feel like I didn't that was like the only kind of dance I really did. But I've known like I was always like really interested in kind of like dance, like in the storytelling context, and like movement, things like that. But I didn't really get to engage with that. I think it was only I want to say when I did this like academic creativity teamwork problem solving competition when I was younger, Destination Imagination. And then one year, one of like the skits we did, we like incorporated like dance and like things like that. And that was like my first time kind of engaging with that. And I thought it was super cool. And I like want to do more of it. Like we were like birds in a mad scientist's lair, and like there were like birds that he turned into like robots that like kind of like formed like the cage for the new bird that he caught. And then like when the bird escaped, she like knocked over chemicals, a bunch of flames erupted, and then like they became those flames, like using fabrics and things like that. So I think that was like one of my early experiences with that, and that was super cool. But yeah, I didn't get to experience that like for a long time again until later. When I got to college, that's when I first started actually doing dance. I joined Common Origins non-audition dance group, which was like, yeah, it was super wonderful community because everyone there is just like trying something new, laughing at ourselves, just like wanting to learn. And I think it just helps so much with like, yeah, also developing people's confidence and like, yeah, it's like people are just interested in like wanting to be more confident in their body movement. And I feel like it was just a cool space for people yeah, we're like connecting with their bodies. And I feel like there's such a wisdom that like dancers hold. And so from there, that was kind of like my dance experience. And I felt like, oh, I was like, okay. I was like, I'm doing like improv and simps. I'm dancing with Common Origins. But I feel like they're very separate. And then I would start like, I think, yeah, there's like, sometimes they would do like freestyle. There was one choreographer one year who did like a freestyle part, like a freestyle workshop. And that was like liberating. I was like, this is crazy. This is awesome. And it felt so cool to like be applying kind of like the improv mindset to like a different medium, like where it's like embodied movement. Yeah. So and I think I was like, oh, I want to explore how these two can come together more. So I think it was like, yeah, then like with a new play, I think it was like, I was really excited because I was like, yay, like I get to like bring it together. Whereas like, because I feel like doing freestyle dance is different from improvising movement for theater. Like I feel like when I'm doing freestyle dance, I think it's like there's a lot of I'm lucky to like have like dance with people who are pretty open to like things don't need to look like certain styles. But there's like, I feel this, I'm trying to find this desire, like I'm trying to like do things within the framework of dance more like versus like to improvise movement in like a theater setting is like, I don't know. I think I'm still figuring out how to articulate it, but like with dance, I feel like there's stuff like groove and like confidence and swagger, and like I'm still learning. Like there's definitely, and like there's phrasing in there too, and there's storytelling, but I feel like I haven't tapped into that yet. But this, like with theater, it feels more, yeah, it feels different. It's like characters and like narrative and world. I don't know. I think they do
Right.
connect in a lot of ways, but I think, yeah, they're exploring different levers, if that's the best way I can explain it.
To me, it feels maybe a little bit like the comparison between like improv and like acting more generally, in that I imagine through your like freestyle or even choreographed dance experience, that's probably why you have like very good control over your movement in some part at least, but like the actual skill of applying to that to theater might be different, where um yeah, like there's like sort of base competency in the thing that you're doing, and then there's like being able to improvise it, which maybe base competency isn't the right word, but like, you think of, people who've auditioned for Simps or whatever, who are like clearly very good, like actors, where they can hit that in a big way, but maybe it's a bit of a different skill. And so it makes sense that it's different, but I imagine that probably all your experiences up to that point led to you being able to at least like, dominate physically in that way.
Yeah, I think it's true in that, being like attuned and aware and engaged with my body, I think was like, something that I brought. In addition to like, I feel like my love of watching animation, informed that too. I think what else? Yeah, and of course, like, and then in Simps, it's like I would always go on stage and be a fucking tree.
Right.
Or like I got a superlative was like most likely to be the wind when given a choice between that and a human. So true.
Why do you think you
Oh,
I've always wondered this, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You I think I'm wait, go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
Oh, I was just saying, why are you like this? Why do you like to be the non-human?
Yeah. Oh my God. Wait, I totally forgot. So in Destination Imagination, DI, that competition I mentioned, so they have like different categories for challenges. So that like skit I was talking about with like the robot birds and the dancing, that was like one of the challenges where it was like fine arts that year. So like essentially you make like a theater play. Like they give you like these random elements and you basically are like devising a skit, like a very short, like 5-minute play, like 5-minute skit together. Which at the time I didn't even know that was devising. But I really enjoyed that. Okay, so that's one challenge. There's many other challenges. Another one is improv. They have an improv challenge, which is like that like it's same thing where like they're giving you a bunch of these like random elements and you have to put them together, and there is a bit of planning. So it's like 5 minutes of planning. It's a bit different, but basically one of they have different like rules every year and things like that. So one of the years they wanted human scenery is like what they called it, which is basically like using your bodies to make up the scenery. Which we also did in like Lumiere with John. But yeah, so I think that's kind of like the background I came from doing improv and was very used to, where it was like, oh, like they're walking through the forest. Let's all be the trees. There's a big fire raging. Let's be the flames. Oh, I remember like one year, it was like we were doing a story about like I was like a ketchup bottle, and then someone was the ketchup, and then like they slid out, and then I was like, oh my God, I was like a really sad ketchup bottle and like very lonely because like I didn't have my ketchup anymore. So a lot of like human scenery was like being the objects, being the physical stuff, and also like they're animated, like they can talk and like have feelings and stuff.
And as a little reminder to the listener, from if you didn't listen to the first physical improviser episode with Sasha, the physical improvisers were specifically designed, and I mean designed in the visual sense, to be able to be props, costumes, scenery. So So any prop, costume, or scenery in the show would be white, and the physical improvisers underneath their black cloaks would be wearing a bright white morph suit outfit so that they could reveal parts of their arms and have their hands become props, or they could take their cloak off fully and play a tree or any sort of background scenery, or just reveal the tip of their finger and be the glint on someone's glasses. So like any of those things that Kaelyn has been talking about before, they could play those things and they would blend in and look like the other physical props that we did have. So we had a physical pumpkin, but then maybe hands would suddenly be a bird or something else like that.
I want to point out that the framing that you just gave of like being the props, being the objects, I think it fits very well within maybe Muprov, definitely like the Sims ethos as compared to maybe improv writ large. I think that I've been in multiple improv spaces out here where there's very much like an idea of, okay, we're going to do scenes. Each scene is two people, and like that is sort of the locked in thing, and it's all going to be between them without even like really wanting to focus on relationships. It's just maybe a presupposition that any scene is always going to be two people or something. And like walk-ons are a particular like, oh, something is happening. But I think that what's nice and what makes maybe a new play feel like immersive at times is that there's no I guess being these objects, being the scenery, like really lowers the barrier to getting on stage. Like always in any show, you can always like go up and do that and help out. And I think that there's a sense in which like when you're in the wings, you are like looking at what's on stage and maybe like, like this is something should be different but if you're on stage as the tree, even though you might not be part of the dialogue, I think that there's a sense that like makes it feel like you're all in this together in a way that maybe fosters some more ensemble. So I liked the framing that you gave it.
I totally agree with it. Yeah, like it's, I think, sorry, what you're saying brought up two things for me. Like, yeah, like with the like, yeah, that it's like another way to play, because I feel like sometimes like coming on stage and like adding to the world and like not needing to talk, because there's already a lot of dialogue going on, right. And I feel like I want to like know like where the characters are, so I'm gonna come and be like a bird, so like maybe they're in a park or something, and I don't have to interfere with like their dialogue already going on. Is like, yeah, I think a great way to do it. And the second thing is like what you said brought up for me is just like I feel like space and like world and setting environment is super important to me. I think I also, another perspective I'm coming from is like my parents are architects, and like I think I've always grown up thinking a lot about like space, like being very intentional and aware of like how does this space, like how is the way this space is designed, how does it make me feel, or like what kind of tenets of like, does the space feel enclosed, does it like foster interaction, does it hinder like interaction, does it drive a certain kind of like interaction between characters. I also was an urban studies major, so I think like thinking about like urban design and like, yeah, I think I just like I'm a huge believer in like space is so important, like even when you're improvising, because like the environment you're in, like, yeah. So
yeah, I think one last note on I guess both parts of what you said is that like it does feel like that is a norm that has to get established within a group. I'm just thinking back to times out here that I've like tried to come on as like the tree that is like filling out the world, or the equivalent of this. And often it's a thing of, oh, this guy came on, let's make him like the funny tree who's like telling jokes or whatever. And so I think that that's a really nice part of the ethos, is that like you can contribute without talking or without being the center of attention. And that's like kind of obvious to us in the way that we came up with improv. But I think focusing on stuff like non-character objects and playing scenery, like even though it might not directly feel like that, like fosters that part of the way that we like to play, maybe.
It's similar to like to musical improvisers and musical underscoring, where like a lot of the work you're doing is what Kaelyn was talking about earlier with amplification of emotion. And then every once in a while you're a doorbell or something that
Right.
rapidly changes the entire narrative. But it's kind of like a mix of those two things. And if you have 10 people improvising at once instead of 2 people, all those people need to be a lot more attuned to amplifying other offers, and the percentage of offers that they're making is kind of smaller and happening at key moments.
Well, to put what Hal just said, to throw that at you, Kaelyn, can you give me 2 alternate ways that you would come on stage? One, if you were the tree who is in the background and trying to fill out the world, and 2, the important tree that you're trying to make the hit, that they knock on the tree and then they open the door and then those are 2
well, that sounds so
rules.
fun too. That sounds so that sounds so like, I mean, that's made me think of Gravity Falls for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, so what are you posing?
Oh, I'm asking so you're like just killer at like just physicalizing like your hits, I think. And so how do you play it differently, being like a background tree versus like an important tree, in the sense of how do you make known without dialogue, which I'm sure would have come up at various times in a new play. How do you make known that you are like an important non-human versus like a just filling out the world non-human?
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I think like, yeah, let me think. I think an important thing is like visibility for your fellow improvisers, not just the audience. Cause like, I think like, yeah, I think that's come up a lot. It's like, if you're like, if you're doing something that you feel like is important to the narrative, then like you like if you're like your fellow improvisers are more upstage, like you've got to make sure that like they know that you're coming on and being something that you feel like is important for them to know.
Right.
I think like if I'm just being a tree to flesh out the world, like I can just like stand like more upstage, like behind them where they don't see me, because like I do still make it known though, because I do feel like I do want them to know I'm like fleshing out like, oh, I'm here supporting you, and like in case there's confusion of whether you're in a graveyard or a park, like this is like clarifying you're in a park. And like helping you out. So I think but like I think like if it's like a tree that's really freaking important, I feel like maybe like sound is a big thing. Like making sound effects, like I think of like magical sounds, like if I were to come out and go like or like roots. I think of like I would make the sound of roots of a tree, maybe like breaking through the ground. Oh my god, I use my hands and my arms a lot to gesture things. I know we can't see here because it's audio, but I think like moving my fingers like their roots like coming together while making the sound of like roots like breaking through the ground. I think, and even if it's done in a way that isn't like super literal, where like my fingers, like they could be on the ground and we're showing the upward motion, like I could be gesturing like higher, closer to my body and just showing like the texture and the pattern of that movement. I'm trying to think of what else. I feel like, if this tree is important, maybe the tree should talk, or if you don't want the tree to talk, you could also like, I think of like doing like narration of like maybe I come on as a tree, but I can speak as like I'm like narrating like a tree appears, like using like a different, like a tree appears in the middle. I also think like having really distinct movement quality, like physicality, so that they know I'm not just a character, and and that this tree is like like there's fantastical element going on, it sounds like, so like more like an embodied like creature, like maybe like kind of like I did this before where I was like this shaky old tree. I think in the Lumiere show, like I was like this ancient tree, so I had like this specific voice, and like the way I moved was like very shaky and like
I'm confident. I'm just confident that if I went on stage, I would know which tree you are based on this description. That's the full gamut. I feel like, and very helpful distinction.
Kaelyn was also making me think, when you're talking about using your arms to play the roots, you know it's an important tree if two other physical improvisers are amplifying it by playing like its extra branches and roots, sort of like if it's a multi-bodied giant tree versus if there are three separate trees kind of in the background.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to talk a little more about this idea of emotional amplification and sort of why it's nice to have your set be made of humans. And this, I think the classic idea is like, you're in a dramatic scene. It was a dark and stormy night. You're in a dramatic scene and then it starts raining and the character is feeling all the feels at the same time as the environment is tossing and turbulating. And with the physical improvisers, the world can sort of start to melt in a way around someone as they feel emotions. So if we want to translate from the physical world into someone's internal monologue, all of a sudden, what was an armchair and a grandfather clock and a old lamp can suddenly become these kind of physical dancing embodiments of the character's emotions. And while the character monologues, and then they can click back into the objects to let you know the monologue is over and we're back in the room. So there's this visual language there that's really useful. And even if that doesn't fully happen, like maybe the clock starts ticking louder and louder and louder as the character's going crazy. And there's still this amplification that's giving energy to the people on stage.
Yeah, I remember doing that in one of the shows with like, and I think Anna W was saying like she had a dream about like velociraptors. So like all of that was like we weren't real objects. We were being like the velociraptors in her dream. And then it transformed to like she's talking about like feeling trapped or something, like some kind of claustrophobia. And then the velociraptors started like wrapping their arms around her like neck. So that reminds me of that. So
yeah, it was awesome. And it changes what Anna ends up talking about as well. Like Anna's able to give a more dynamic monologue because she's actually basing it on what's happening around her.
So I think one of the things so I think we've hit pretty hard, like a lot of the things that you're thinking about in terms of being a physical improviser, what you can achieve by just physicalizing action in general in improv. One thing that I'm interested to hear about, maybe in particular with respect to your experience in a new play, is how you think about like synchronicity with other improvisers when you're in this like physical improviser role. So it feels like when doing like, stage, like character improviser work, a lot of like the synchronicity is like eye contact and you like are feeling each other out on stage and you kind of converge on some synchronicity together. But it feels like a big barrier would be one, no dialogue typically or just narration or whatever as a physical improviser. And two, the sense in which so that first thing might border your synchronicity with both character improvisers and physical improvisers. And then the second thing, that the character improvisers are pretty much just seeing you as objects. Like there's not typically like a grand interaction happening there. And so with respect to both of those things, did you find it hard to sync up? I know that the physical improviser team was like, very, very mind meldy in an awesome way, but how did you think about synchronicity while doing a new play? And was it difficult at times?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that is something I struggled with. I think I feel like if we had more time, I wish we would have spent more time on figuring out synchronicity. Because I think, but I think it's so reasonable that we struggle with it because it's a big challenge. I think, I think I'd be really interested in people brainstorming and like coming up with ways of figuring out how we could like work more in syncing up. Because not having like the dialogue, I think we did find some things like we found like eye contact and like kind of like taking from like music, like use like a breath to like start like cue like and start together. We did some exercises, I think like Go from Matt Chapman. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Would you be able to describe it? How I don't really know how to describe it.
Yeah, I think we might have even already described it in the new play series. But everyone stands in a circle. One person is in the center. Someone from the outside says go, and the person in the center moves in the opposite direction from this person who said go, joining the outer ring. People move to make space, and the person who says go fills into the center. And that keeps on repeating. So it's go, 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 and it's changing who's in the center. And then you start to do it with a metronome where you're trying to get it to happen on every beat. So there's a constant, similar to in volleyball, when you need to yell mine and choose who actually dives for the ball. There's a constant moment of who is going to go and how do you prevent collision. You know when the person has to go and you know someone has to be there. And you can use your breath as a way where if you want to go on the next beat, you inhale loud enough for everyone to hear. And this is a crash preventative, because if two people both inhale, you now know two people might crash and one of you has to make your inhale bigger and the other one makes it smaller, and then that person goes in. It's a way of being like, I'm about to do something before you do it.
Yeah. So I thought, that exercise was helpful. And I feel like, I'd be interested in like looking at, I'm interested in like these physical, like syncing exercises. I don't know.
It's weird how either not easily, but how that you actually can sync up on these like intangible things. This is less physical, but I really like the exercise first I did with Lisa. I think she called it like mindfuck or something. But just the one where you have like 4 categories and you have different orders of the circle. So it's like cities, animals, and then you, and so you're looking at someone, and then you say you, and then that person passes it to the next person. But then there's a different order where you're looking at someone else and saying Houston, and then they're looking at someone else. That kind of exercise. Yeah.
Did I freeze? Oh wait, I'm back. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, I remember this. It was like pointing patterns. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And in general, I think the thing is there truly is like this concept of like a group vibe, a group like a group meld that you can do in games like Go or maybe this one are helpful to get there.
Yeah, I recommend going back to the Clio de Oreo episode on flocking. That is the best method that I've found so far of how to synchronize a group. It's kind of like next level diamond dancing. The fluid diamond dance.
I have to check that one out.
Yeah.
So one of the other things for a new play is that like one of the, I mean, Hal definitely holds the broadest wisdom with respect to how it was framed in this, but like one of the big ideas was to do it in this Muprov way of like doing, not doing, and really not trying to stockpile or anything like that. Do you feel like over the course of a new play, you were able to glom onto this? You were already doing that before a new play? You know, how was your experience with trying to improvise in that way?
I think like, I don't know if I like thought of it. I don't think I had thought of it that way before a new play. So I think it was like really cool to like experience that kind of like improv like mindset to play with. I remember we had a practice where we did I am a tree, but like with that kind of like doing without doing kind of mindset and like letting like the vacuums pull us.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, it was like, it's cool because it's like it feels different. And it's like, it's like trying to like more hit like this meditative state, it felt more like, versus sometimes like I feel like although like when we would play together in Sims, like there is like, you know, there's like a style, but even within that style, there are like many different styles of playing. Like it can range from show to show. And I feel like, like I've had sometimes like when I play, like I'll feel more like it's like, oh, I have this idea and like let's run with it, or like playing more hammy, or like so it depends. But I thought it was cool. Trying to remember. I think it was interesting to like play with that mindset, and I feel like I definitely like was able to like get more practice at being able to do that mindset over the course of like practicing, because I think at first like it was like took some adjusting to. But I definitely felt like letting like vacuums pull us. I think like the physical improvisers, like I think that was a way that we would mind meld, because like although it's like the opposite of mind melt, I kind of feel like where it's like hey, it's okay, like just do something if you feel the vacuum pulling it, and we'll figure it out and support each other. Like so even if we weren't perfectly like our minds weren't thinking the same thing, like it's okay because like we're playing with this like same mindset and like affirming each other. I had a thought, but I forgot. Wait, where did it go? Yeah, I think. Yeah, it was like the doing without doing and letting like natural instinct pull me, which is I feel like I wasn't in character improviser practices, so I don't know how it felt like, but I will personally say for me, like it felt very natural to be playing with that mindset as a physical improviser. Because I feel like for me, my instinct tends towards like sometimes like if I don't know what to do, I'll just like put my hand down and that'll lead me to where to go next. Like that's the vacuum where it's like letting the natural momentum of like my body move me. Yeah.
Yeah. You're in touch with your own vacuums, maybe.
Yeah.
I had another one, Hal, if you didn't. Yeah. So I'm interested in generally like boiling down the essence of like what your kind of favored style of like both, I guess, doing or let me say the full thing. So I guess broadly, has your improv changed since sort of a new play or kind of the last time that we've improvised together? And in this time of over your whole improv lifestyle, do you think that you've been able to boil down what you think about improv or how you do improv that is particularly in contrast to others? Not saying that nobody does it, but just have you been able to figure out what it is that you do that specifically you do and that you like to do, maybe?
Okay, you ask a lot of good questions there. I'll try to go on it. I think since a new play, let me think, that was in my junior year. So then after that, I had 4 more quarters at Stanford. So 4 more quarters of Simps, and I think I don't know. I just feel like I feel like I've definitely like I wouldn't say, I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if change is like the right way to put it, but like I feel like I'm kind of expanding my ideas of what improv is and like ways to like facilitate and like teach and direct formats and like ways of doing it. Yeah, I think like my ideas have expanded a lot. And I'm trying to think of like concrete examples, but there's just so much. Like I feel like it is very abstract. It's hard to like boil it down. Yeah, but I think there's definitely been a lot of like exploring and like continuing that journey. Yeah, I think because also yeah, I think like after a new play, like taking like I think one big thing I took away from a new play was like okay, like I want to go and be a tree in that scene, or like I want to come in as like the waiter so I can establish at the coffee shop. I think before I would do that and like not really think about it in the context of the entire scene or like the entire narrative. And I think like sometimes like me doing it could have been like a little distracting. And I think after a new play, although yeah, this is kind of contradictory to the vacuums, but was like me kind of like learning to like I was like learning to refine my taste, so that's the right way to put it. Like trying to be more aware of like, oh, I could come in and put a coffee down the table, but wait, they're having like a really serious conversation about like a baby. So maybe I'm not gonna come in right now. Or like I could come in as a tree, but like does it fit the tone of what's happening here? Because this kind of the vibe feels more of like it feels like the tone is like doesn't feel like it really matches that. So I think like me being more conscious of that. So like I'm still doing stuff where I'm fleshing out the environment, but I feel like I'm trying to like do it like make sure that it's like helpful to my fellow improvisers. yeah, and then since then I also I've been doing like an improv project with Anna W, where we're kind of like experimenting with like different levers we're interested in playing with. Like Anna's interested in kind of like playing with like dialogue and like mind movement, like different like yeah, metaphors for the way the mind moves for characters and dialogue. And I was just broadly interested in exploring space, kind of like yeah, like fleshing like God, it's so abstract. It's hard to describe. But yeah, I was interested in like, okay, how do we like like endow space? And because yeah, I just feel like space like gives us so many offers. Like, yeah, like if we have like if there's like a big window that looks onto the street, like I could be like interacting with someone, like my next door neighbor, and like I don't even need to like and I don't even need to explicitly say that I don't really love talking to that next door neighbor. All I have to do is like awkwardly chat with them and then shut the window and you get the idea.
Right.
So I think, yeah, things like that. So yeah, and I feel like my ideas of improv are like, they're still very in flux, which is good as they always should be. Yeah, but I feel like, yeah, like I'm really glad like to expanding. And like, even though like now I'm done with Stanford now, like I still want to like keep finding ways to keep learning and growing. So
yeah, that it's so right. The thing you're saying of like a lot of the ideas that we have about improv and like what we like about improv feel very like abstract and hard to realize, especially when we put in all of these like improv hours where it is kind of easier for us to think about the abstract concept than any individual like case of it, just because it only appears when it's only clear when you see it a bunch of times. Was I right in the first part of what you said, hearing that part of your kind of growth as an improviser in this interim has been spending more time doing like the other angles of improv, like teaching or facilitating and stuff like that?
Directing.
Was right?
Kaelyn's directed a ton, right?
I got to do, I think I've done 3 total now, which I'm like super happy about. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's just different angles. I finally got to TA 103, which was
fun.
yeah, it was super fun. It was yeah, like just yeah, to see like the joy like that it brings people was just really heartwarming. And like yeah, and like figuring out like how do we make sure to like facilitate a supportive environment and yeah, so I think that was like really cool to be teaching improv and like yeah. And then yeah, also like directing is also like essentially like facilitating environment. I think like trying to like figure out like okay, like how do we want to like run the practices? What are like ways we can think about this format? Like do we want to talk like yeah, we can talk about tropes, but I feel like I also want to talk about like what are like the vibes like I feel like I love saying vibes instead of like because I'm talking about like oh what's the genre, what's the tone, what's the aesthetic, but I feel like vibes is like a good way to put it. Yeah, like I think yeah, a big thing that's come up for me when I've like in directing, I think it came up in the last 2 I did. I directed Simps Actually, which is Improvised Love Actually. And also improvised sitcom with Danya, which was super fun.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, because I was like, Loki, I was like, sometimes improv shows just feel like sitcoms.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so I think a big thing of that, a big thing that's come up for me that is really interesting to explore is familiarity. Like, because I think like when people and I think like practicing like intimacy and consent comes into a big part of that. Yeah, but also like yeah, you're right because it's like with yeah, like Simps Actually we were like okay, like we're exploring different types of love and it didn't just have to be romantic. But like let's talk about like different like ways like different like types of like basically like I feel like intimacy is the display of familiarity between characters and so just like working on different ways of that. And we also did that in sitcom where it's like a big element of sitcom is like you have this like you have your ensemble, and like they're very familiar with each other. Like they all
Right.
know each other.
Yeah.
And so working on like, okay, like, yeah, it's like, you've always got the two guys who like they always like say shit about each other behind each other's backs, but at the end of the day, they really love each other.
Right.
Or like another like example, like a display of like intimacy to show familiarity between characters is like someone enters the scene, they're like, hey, like you left your shoes at my house again. Like, come on, like I can't keep bringing them to you all the time. Things like that. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so right that like a lot of sitcoms are mostly founded on like the premise of the chemistry between the people on stage. And so that must have been a fun nut to crack.
Simps, actually, I watched it on YouTube and it was really good. That was the only Simp show that I've watched on YouTube since graduating where I was like, wow, I'm 100% engaged the entire time. This is like, they're absolutely tearing it up. It
Thank
was
you, Hal.
really, really good show. I hope you're
Thank
very
you.
proud of that.
I am. Yeah. I wish. Oh, I wish. Yeah. Like you could have seen the practices too, because I feel like there was so much in practices that I like. Yes, I love the final show too, but I feel like we had some like really fun stuff come up in the runs when practicing. But yeah, that was a fun one because I feel like it was like just like all about relationships and yeah.
But perfect segue because I have this written down that you like relationship focused improv, like obviously off of the last like 5 minutes of what you've said. But particularly thinking about those two Sims formats, they sound like a lot of fun, but they are both set within a very specific sort of known genre. Bring it back a little bit to a new play. I think that we were trying to shift from a lot of Sim shows are essentially like emulating TV shows or movies or whatever, whereas a new play is like sort of emulating theater. And so we're not falling into these very well-known genres, or it's a bit of a different feel. And so one question I have to ask is, and it sounds like maybe you're exploring some of this with Anna, but as someone who is into exploring relationships in the improvised setting, are there any like types of relationships or ways that you could explore a relationship that you think you might only be able to do in like a new play that you would be interested in seeing, or maybe you can tap on if there's stuff that you've been thinking about with Anna with this regards, but it just feels like there's a certain range of relationships that like very genre focused improv can explore. But if we broaden this to this more like theatrical, abstract, sort of serious setting, are there types of relationships that you haven't seen on the improv stage that you would love to see?
That's a good question because I haven't thought about that. Like in terms of like, yeah, for like the range of relationships you can have in like more abstract kind of like show. Yeah, because I feel like, that's a good question. I think like, I guess also tying into what we were talking about with physical improvisers earlier. I guess it's like the relationship between like, well, like the relationships between humans and non-humans. Where like I think we had this in practice one time where it was like I was some kind of like a plant and like kind of like interacting physically, like moving my like using my arm as like the plant to move towards like the character and like interacting with them. Yeah, because I think that's like obviously interacting with like nature, like natural elements. And like of course you have like creatures and animals and things like that. I think also interacting like what like like I think I've been exploring a bit of this with Anna, but hoping to dive into more. But like like a relationship with like objects and like spaces, I think. I don't know how yet, but I feel like it could be cool.
Well, you and I had a human non-human relationship in one of the shows, and I was thinking about it earlier when you were when we were talking about synchronicity, because the whole point was I wasn't really seeing you, which might have been hard for you to play around. But yeah, that is a very interesting thing to think about, relationships that humans have to non-human characters, and I can't visualize things in my head of examples of that, but I feel like there are examples of that that'd be really interesting to explore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've been thinking a lot about improvised, like, carefully designed improv where someone has taken a lot of time to make elements that are pre-planned that the improvisers interact with. And you could
Yeah.
definitely do a very interesting show where you had a designer curate a set of, objects that were meaningful in the people's relationships. And then each of those objects was some sort of suggestion for the scenes, and you'd sort of see why. That could be a fun.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Yeah. And I feel like and like how I mentioned, like I did this like dance theater play with Anna Jung like recently. I think like experiencing like scripted doing adaptations and things like that like has also like opened me up to like, oh, like what are different ways that like improvise and scripted things interact. What you're describing now, it sounds like there's like, yeah, the element of like careful like preparation and design, but there's still improv with it. And I think I'm interested right now in like thinking more about like, I think this is what I meant when I said like my ideas of improv are like expanding and like just learning more of like, yeah, like what are like different ways we can play with like how much do we want improvise versus like prepare beforehand? Like what are different ways to play with like the balance between them? Yeah.
This is more in line vibe wise with something like BuzzFeed in a way that we probably aren't like super into exploring. But like, do you guys watch Dropout ever?
No.
It makes me think about what you're describing now in terms of they do have a lot of stuff where there is like careful preparation that goes, but then there's a big improvised component. I think one of their shows that's fun is like Very Important People, where they get comedy or improv people, and they spend like 5 hours doing a very like complicated costume on them, where they're maybe turning them into a robot or some arcade man or something, and then they improvise an interview like that. So yeah, I do totally. I'm interested in this space where stuff is happening, but we should throw our spin on it and make it feel more theatrical and narrative/relationship focused.
Kaelyn, one last question before we start moving into our final bit. You mentioned things that you were interested in changing. If you could run a new play next time, and maybe either you were directing it or could make any changes that you want to happen, what would the spaces that you'd want to experiment with next be?
Wait, supposed to be about space or
no? I meant,
or you're just okay, gotcha. I think the big thing for me would be I think I'm interested in, I feel like how we did it where like the character and the physical improvisers were separate, and I think like obviously like we were on a very short timeline. So I thought what we were able to do was like there's so much to work on with the character improvisers and there's so much to work on with the physical improvisers. But I feel like it would be really cool to like, cause like I don't know what you guys in the character improviser practices. And I feel like I'd be very interested to know. And like I feel like, yeah, it would be cool to like, I don't know. Maybe this is very contradictory to your original concept, Hal, and like totally understand. But I feel like, yeah, I don't know if the character improvisers ever felt limited that they couldn't be like playing non-human things or like they couldn't move or like I don't know. Cause like, yeah, I feel like I'd be interested in like because I feel like when we do in Sims, when we do shows, there were no character improvisers, physical improvisers. Like you could do any of that. And I think it would be interesting if like to just have like the whole ensemble be like more like they could do both if they wanted. Yeah.
Interesting to have the morph suits backstage, such that if we glom on to like a 2-person show in the first scene, that the remaining character improvisers can join the physical ranks.
Yeah, that's because that was my main thing, was the logistical question of how do you know whether you're going to be in a costume or whatever. But yeah, I guess people could enter in costumes if they wanted to be characters, and they could enter in morph suits if they wanted to be physical improvisers. So we would just need a little dressing room so that you could switch back and forth without losing too much information.
That's true. That's true. I guess I was just thinking of like how like I remember you were so excited in physical improviser practice, and you're like, oh, like I want to be doing physical improv stuff. So I'm like, oh, I want you to be able to do it too.
I do. I do. At some point in my life, I will be a physical improviser for a new play. But and that actually might be a better space for me than a character improviser, especially when I was directing. It was kind of a lot to be a character and a director at the same time.
That makes sense.
I bet if we did like 10 new plays or something, that we would have gotten super meta about the physical character improviser divide, and we would have done some weird stuff of like turning. I mean, we kind of, we did have like that one show where the physical improvisers were more character-like, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking about this idea of having people be able to do both, and I think that that's something that we would have been thinking about and would have like naturally integrated into our show on accident. On night 9 or whatever. Yeah, like maybe there's a friend group and one member of the friend group is kind of the odd one out, wears a morph suit and like does weird stuff, or maybe someone like when they're in their more emotional state becomes a physical improviser, and when they're in their more logical state becomes a character improviser. Like two people fall in love and one's a physical and one's a character, and then halfway through they like switch.
Whoa, switch.
So I'm going to bring us into our wrapping moments. Kaelyn, you have the opportunity. First off, thank you so much for talking to us today. But you have the opportunity now to give a shout out to pretty much any concept that you could think to give a shout out to. Yeah, who would you like to give a shout out to? Who or what?
Well, I feel like because we were talking about we were talking about I got to TA 103, which I was very excited about. So I want to give a shout out to my 103 students because they were awesome. Like it was just, I don't know, it was just so much fun. Like I was like, are you the first week? I was like, wow. I was like, this group loves to laugh, and I love that. Yeah, no, they're super awesome. Like they like got a group chat, and then like they organized a board game night, which was like super fun. Yeah, and so I'm excited. Yeah, and I've like, I was like, I got dinner with one of them recently, and it's just it was just really nice. Yeah, so shout out my 103 students. Love.
Oh, that's a great shout out. I always find myself feeling so vampiric when TAing 103 of like they have that like improv new lifeblood that I feel like you somehow lose a lot of over time, and it's like I wish I could be like you and like be discovering all this for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my God, Julian, I don't know if you know, but one of your 103.
Yeah, I heard Chris. Yeah,
he's in Sims now. So I was like, oh my God, your team was Julian. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And Kaelyn, you also are the only remaining person who isn't descended from Cameron or I, because I don't think any of Jada's students got into Sims. So now your lineage will continue. As some
oh, that's so funny. Students. Oh my God, yeah, because I think there's two of my students are stage improvisers and one's a musical improviser. And so, and then but Dania, some of them I think they're like two of them are in 104. So Dania was like, I've taken them now. But yeah, no, it's super. Yeah, I'm super excited for them and their improv journeys, and for all my other students who are finding improv in their life in other ways. So yeah.
Awesome.
All right then. Without further ado, this has been Muprov
Musings.
So my sign off is that it's April Fool's Day, and we came up with an epic prank to do on Kaelyn. We were going to start this episode out and be like, this is the last episode of Muprov Musings ever. And I opened with our ultimate host, Julian Bernardo. And Julian goes on a long spiel about how ultimate means last. And then he goes from there into the segue. And speaking of last, and then he pauses, and I'm so ready for him to go into this epic prank that we planned. And then he goes, the last time Kaelyn came on the episode. Ugh.
I totally forgot. I'm always just so curious to hear what word you're going to use to describe me, and then I just try to riff on it. And so I forgot. I thought it was apropos of nothing, but it was apropos of a whole plan that we had to prank you.
Did any of you guys do a prank today or get pranked?
Oh, no, not yet. Some stuff on Twitter maybe, but like I wanna do some. Every April Fool's comes around, and I'm like, I want to do something, but it's like I should have started planning a long time ago. So maybe I should start planning for next year.
So true.
Kaelyn,
It's like
did you?
about Halloween. No, I totally forgot it was April Fool's.
Have you ever? Kaelyn? What's the best April Fool's that you've ever interacted with?
Oh my god, I can't think of one off the top of my head right now. I think it's been a minute since someone pulled a prank on me.
Yeah,
I don't know. Do you guys have any?
Blackened.
Today we did one on the director where she always has us like do the walk around the room thing, where everyone's like walking around. It ended up being a lot scarier looking than what we'd intended, but the idea was that at some point the three people who were playing the witches and Macbeth were going to start kind of controlling everyone's bodies and making them do strange things and fall to the floor. And it really looked like we were all robots, and there had just been a glitch in the Matrix that caused everyone to simultaneously collapse. Like, it looked like there was carbon monoxide had been let into the room, or something had gone really wrong and scary. And our director looked freaked out for a second, and then she was like, "Wait a second."
That's so fun.
But
scary.
The craziest April Fool's prank I've ever seen, I totally had blacked this out of my memory, but my Spanish teacher, my freshman year of high school, told us very convincingly that she had been fired based on something that had happened in our last class. And specifically, I think about one student, I forget, it was like a really complicated one. And she went on for a long time and started crying. And then it suddenly turned out to be April Fool's.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really scary. It was like, it was like you could write a book about it.
You guys must have really liked her then.
Yeah.
Oh, can't you see me now? Can't you see me now? Like you did back then. Can't you see me now? I remember way back when. Oh, and times they are changing. You know, things are rearranging. Can't you see me now? Can't you see me now? Everything is changing. Can't you see me now? Can't you see me now?